Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Atlantic International Film Festival Public Panel Series. Today's panel is entitled Good Vibes Only. So before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsors, Warner Brothers Discover, and RBC Emerging Artists. Thank you for your support. Now I'd like to welcome our host for today, Stephanie Joline. Stephanie's hosting 3 of the 4 panels we have this week. Stephanie Joline is an Indigenous writer, director, and producer based in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Her Indigenous roots come from her mother, who is Inuit from Labrador. Her father is French-Canadian from the South Shore of Nova Scotia. Equally adept at film and television, Stephanie's stories provoke conversation, break boundaries, and are deeply rooted in exclusivity and feminism. She's very exclusive.
Tara wrote that bio.
Oh, thanks, Tara.
I'll write anyone's.
Now, did you write this one? Tara Thorne.
Yeah, probably.
Has been a journalist in Halifax for over 20 years. She spent 19 of those on staff at the Coast, 15 at CBC Radio, and since the fall of 2020 has been hosting Halifax's premier arts and culture podcast, The Tide Line, which is produced by the Halifax Examiner.
Now canceled.
Sorry.
So much for premiere.
It's like pop-up video, but like pop-up bio correcting.
I love it. In 2020, there we go. Yeah. In 2020, with Nicole Steeves, Tara was awarded Talent to Watch funding by Telefilm to direct her debut feature film, Compulsus, a feminist vengeance story about a lesbian vigilante who attacks abusive hipster men at night. And that's all we need to say there. Coombe. Coombe is an award-winning actor, director, writer, and producer. In front of the camera, they have appeared in a number of local productions with reoccurring roles on shows including CBC shows like Mr. D, Studio Black, Digstown, Moonshine, and the final season of Out TV's Sex and Violence. Since going behind the camera, Coombe has directed a number of award-winning short films, including the short film Face-Off winner Hustle and Heart. Her debut feature film, Bystanders, recently premiered, well, that was last year, so, at the Atlantic International Film Festival, where it took home Best Atlantic Script alongside her co-writer, Taylor Olson. Welcome, Coombe. And finally, Lise Keeling on the far end of the panel. Lise has a wide, varied experience on movies and television sets as both a stunt performer and coordinator, as well as an intimacy coordinator. As stunt coordinator, she has worked on Sullivan's Crossing, Trailer Park Boys, Washington Black, and Away from Her, to name a few. She has been the intimacy coordinator on among another of these productions, like Sullivan's Crossing. Her work as a stunt performer is almost too numerous to list, but the standouts include Handmaid's Tale, Nightmare Alley, Grand Army, and Flashpoint. She's also done significant commercial work. She's a member of the Intimacy Coordinators of Canada and a member of ACTRA, SAG, and ACTRA. All right. Thank you so much to all of you for being here.
Thanks, Chrissy.
And I'll take a seat.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Like Chrissy said, good vibes. You can hear me? Yep. This is the panel today, Good Vibes Only. So we're going to talk about safety and all kinds of different physical safety, emotional safety, egos. It's my favorite topic, so that's great. We'll talk about that. I'll start off by just acknowledging the land we're on. We're in Nova Scotia, which is Mi'kma'ki. The Mi'kmaq people live here. I'm an Indigenous person, but I'm not from this land, so I just wanted to acknowledge that we're on unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people, and I respect the ongoing and nuanced relationship between the nations. So thank you all for being here. I won't introduce everybody because the introductions have already been made, so I'll just start right into the questions. Lisa, I'm going to start with you. Okay, so you are a stunt coordinator,
Yes.
and you also have done stunt performing.
Yes.
First off, what's the difference between those two?
Coordinator is the one who coordinates the stunts, and the performer is the one who does the stunts. The natural transition through the industry for somebody in stunts, you start out as a performer, and you really need a fair bit of experience to move up to being a coordinator. We have set standards. There are set standards globally. And Canada's standards are 425 days as a stunt performer gets you up to being able to start to qualify for training to be a coordinator. So it's years of being a stunt performer, and then you go into coordinating if you want to. Not everybody wants to move in that direction. So,
Is that something that you see a lot of people do, stunt performing? Do they stay in the industry that long? Or is that sort of an industry that where a lot of turnaround?
Well, unfortunately, because of the nature of the industry, there can be a lot of turnaround because it can be a very dangerous job, and so unfortunately, we tend to be a little bit expendable at times, and it's like being a professional athlete. Like that's the way we look at it. You are an elite athlete if you are going into stunts. And because a lot of us have very specific training, and you don't see a lot of professional athletes going into their 50s and 60s. I don't want to be hit by a car at the age of 60 anymore. It's more of a young person's game, and the younger guys can fall down the stairs and they can be hit by the cars. When you get to a certain age, you just don't want to be. I mean, we all know what it's like to try and get out of bed in the morning. So, I don't want to be doing that sort of thing anymore. So,
No, that's understandable. Before I move on, I do want to talk about stunts a little later on too, but I want to ask, can you name a few examples of something that is a stunt that some people might be surprised to hear is considered a stunt?
The definition for us is there's actor action. So if an actor is going to be falling onto the ground, once you start to fall onto mats or falling onto the ground, you've gone from the realm of actor action into a stunt. If I'm putting pads onto an actor, it's for comfort and comfort only. And then if they're going to start to be taking blows or falling onto the ground where you need a little bit more training, that's when it starts to become in the realm of a stunt. So.
Okay, yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense, I think.
Yeah.
Tara, I'm going to go to you next. As a director, have you found yourself in a situation where you have to do stunts and think about physical safety on set?
Why, Stephanie? What a question. And actually, it was with Lee's. So yeah, my lesbian vigilante movie involves a lot of punching and
As one would-
and
might
stuff. Yeah.
assume.
So but part of it was the movie isn't actually that violent, and that's part of it. The point of it isn't to show violence; it's the fact that she was doing it. But we did have a few things where she had to do stuff, and then James McClane played all the men, and so he took all the hits. So Leslie gave all the hits, and he took all the hits. So the first thing I did on the movie, I think it was 2 days before we went to camera, like I met with you, and we went to a church, and it was this giant gym, and they just ran through them all, and we talked through the scenes and what kind of stoop is it going to be? Where are we going to be on the street? Like what's going to be happening? And it just, I think it was stressful for them. Jimmy's done, I think, a lot more stunt work, but it was Leslie's first time, and I think she was just a bit nervous about it in amongst all the other things that they have to worry about as actors. Also, like falling properly and moving at the right time and stuff like that. But yeah, it was a fun first day. I actually tell this story a lot because that's you and I met that day, and I was like off to the side looking at my book, and I heard you like pulled them in, and you're like, if you have a problem, if she asks you to do something you don't want to do, don't say it to her, say it to me. And I was like, I can hear you. One. And two, we have a 15-day shoot in between COVID outbreaks. Like, I don't have time to hurt anyone. Because I think you're used to, and I mean, I'm sure this will come up, I think actors are used to being expendable as our stunt people. It's like they're not treated that well.
No, and part of the point too is that a lot of times you want to keep the director happy. Like, you've just got this role of being the lead actress or the lead actor, the lead performer, and you want to perform for your director. You want to perform for your producer because you want to get hired again. So a lot of times we'll take on things that we're not prepared for or we're not comfortable with. And having the agency to be able to say, I'm not comfortable, without being afraid of losing your job or losing future jobs. So that's the thing. It's a matter of instilling that people do have a voice and there's a safe space for them. And we never want to put somebody into a position where they're not safe or it's over their head. So,
I mean, that's a good segue into like intimacy coordinating, because that's a different type of safety and kind of level of comfort. Kumbi, I'll start with you. Can you tell me a little bit about how and why you decided to become one of the many things you do is an intimacy coordinator?
Well, I was writing Bystanders. Taylor and I were writing it, and we knew that we had some intimate scenes, and I was like, we'll probably be doing this for no money on the weekends with our friends. We're not going to be able to hire people to do many of the things we'd like to. So I'll just be the intimacy coordinator as well. I'll just do that and direct, and at that time I think maybe even act as well. And it was the first class maybe of the intimacy training where you find out all the reasons why you should not and really cannot be your own intimacy coordinator.
Right.
I think, you both kind of mentioned this, but the power dynamic between the actor, not even and just the director, but just the actor and production is so clear and so strong that you need someone outside of that dynamic to be able to sort of navigate that conversation. So I very quickly discovered I could not be my own intimacy coordinator, but I really fell in love with the training because it's a lot of the things that we're really passionate about, and making it not as awkward and sucky. And just, last thing on that power dynamic, I think we often hear about celebrities, being really demanding or having all of these things that they require and production sort of bows down to them, and that might be true, but our local actors will do almost anything at any time because we're so desperate for the job. And so that dynamic of that celebrity in production is not even remotely close to what happens often on our sets. And so it's really important to be able to advocate for yourself but also for others.
A similar question that I asked Lise about stunts. Can you give us an example of something that really could use an intimacy coordinator that some people might not even think of as, well, obviously a sex scene. Okay, everyone's thinking about that. But what else?
Yeah, so and Lise can speak to this too because we're part of the same organization. But the definition of intimacy, I think, is a lot broader than people think it is. I think it's really easy to say, a simulated sex scene, that's intimacy, or even kissing or making out, that's intimacy. But something I found really interesting is that anything that puts you in a really vulnerable state can actually be considered intimacy. So an example I always use is if someone is really sensitive about their ear for whatever reason, if they find out that the scene is going to be an extended close-up of their ear, that might be really intimate for them, and it might be worth having a conversation about production about how to make that a better experience, even though it's an ear that people may not see as hypersensitive.
Well, to that point, we're in prep on our second film, and there's a handful, maybe 3 or 4 scenes that aren't intimate in terms of physical intimacy, but I feel like the actors will benefit from having fewer people around and being able to have room to play and being able to have room to just work it out together. It's because it's all written, but there's options. So I've flagged a handful of scenes to be a closed set for that exact reason, because it's not just about it's not just about kissing. It's about all kinds of things.
And that's really great too, because I think sometimes productions are scared of doing that because they're like, oh gosh, the money of an intimacy coordinator on that day, we can't possibly afford it. But just because something's been flagged doesn't necessarily mean that the intimacy coordinator has to be there. They'll go through and do a breakdown and talk to the director, and depending on the scene, say, I'd really like to be there. And the actors can always ask as well, so that can change things too. But just because there is maybe a sensitive scene, it doesn't mean they have to be on set. Right. It just depends on all of the specifics and the language. If there's a writer, then they'll be on set, but otherwise it's not cut and dry. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, Lise, you're also an intimacy coordinator. Can you tell us a little bit about what drew you to that role?
Sure. There's a very close parallel between stunt work. It might sound strange, but between stunt work and intimacy work. So I've been doing stunt work for over 30 years, and I was always having to advocate for myself because unfortunately a lot of times like the guys, the male performers would be wearing a lot more clothing, and they had the advantage of, falling down the stairs in a suit, whereas women a lot of times, based on films that you were watching in the 80s and the 90s, you were in a mini skirt or you were in a bra and underwear. Like it was just, you were more vulnerable. So we were advocating for ourselves. We had to advocate for the doubles, the women that we were doubling, the performers that we were doubling. But then also, it's a very male-dominant industry. Most of the stunt coordinators, especially back in that day, were male. And a lot of times, there weren't a lot of female doubles. You had men doubling women. So as you started to get more women on set, when we're going into harnesses, it was the men who were putting harnesses on us, and you become, you're almost like one of the boys, and you're comfortable having somebody manhandling you, and really, just putting their hands, tightening up straps and that sort of thing. But then when you would introduce another performer, it's quite awkward for them. And so as a female performer doubling somebody, I would always ask for some privacy, or if we had a separate room, things that wouldn't have occurred to production before. So now all of a sudden there was this close parallel to advocating for your performer or for yourself. You'd go to set and you'd be told, okay, it's a jail scene and it's just a fight. And then you'd get there on the day and they'd say, well, actually, and I'm going to speak frankly, it's a rape scene, but you don't have a problem with that, do you? And you'd go, no, of course I don't. Because if you do say that you did have a problem with it, you wouldn't get hired again. So you'd say, yeah, no, it's fine, it's no problem, but it really affects you. So it was important to start to put things in place that protected you or had conversations to make people aware that no, it's not okay to do that, or let's have a discussion earlier on so we're not blindsiding people. So that's how I kind of went from not just going from one to the other, but it was always moving in parallel.
For those who are here watching this that are filmmakers, what advice could you give on the topic of stunts or intimacy coordination with if somebody's working on a really low budget or a no budget, even if they're at the writing stage and maybe you could just play it really safe and have absolutely no intimacy and no stunts and that's your film. But if somebody has a story that really calls for one of or both those things, do you have advice, Kumbi? We can start with you maybe, for a filmmaker who has very low budget or no budget and wants to include some of these things?
I'm very familiar with that situation of the no budget. I mean, I'm always going to say write what you need to. Yeah. Don't do that, please. That's the opposite of what I want. Sorry. Write what you want. Don't I would always get stuck with writing with that producer brain where I would be writing and then be like, oh gosh, that's going to be way too expensive, and then sort of changing it, which can happen later on eventually. But I do think it's better to just get your story out. That being said, if you are not prepared to do the work to do it properly, then I just don't know if you're ready to tell that story at that time. It might be something that needs to wait until you have the funds or the resources. That being said, it never hurts to send an email. I've gotten emails before. I just consulted because I said I couldn't be the coordinator because I couldn't be there in person, but I was able to sort of walk through some of the protocols of what would be important to talk about and have on hand, those kinds of things. And that's something that's always available to you. But yeah, I think if you're gonna do an essay scene or a orgy scene or something like that, and you have no resources, you can't hire anybody, you can't have those conversations, maybe you do that in a couple years.
Right.
Maybe
you have
you
a little
wait.
more budget, yeah.
But also, we have to be resourceful when you're making a no-budget film anyways, and so I think there is a way that you can figure it out. There are people like us. I would rather at least consult or even be there on the day than have someone do a scene in a way that it could be potentially harmful, so hit me up.
Tara, with your film Compulsus, you guys had a relatively small budget, but it wasn't a no-budget movie. So was there any differences between when you wrote what was on the script and then when you got into the reality of how are we going to make a fight scene and how are we going to pull off some of these stunts?
Stunts specifically?
Or intimacy stuff.
Well, intimacy was funny because it wasn't funny. It was unfortunate because there were two scenes in the script. So our characters' names were Wally and Lou, and it said Wally and Lou celebrate, which to me was a sex scene. So that was in there twice, right? I know you learn by doing. So then the both script supervisor and then production manager production designer came to me. So they're like, so you're thinking instruments? Or are you thinking champagne? I'm like, what are you talking about? And from working with Lee's, you have to write the whole thing out. You have to write all the beats. You have to explain what's going to happen. So now when I write sex stuff, because I am a repressed prude, so the intimacy coordination, the directing that stuff is hard for me. But it's important because they're contemporary queer stories and you need to see them being physically intimate. So the new movie, there's 7 people and every single one of them has something and one of them has 3. It's just what happens. So, but when writing it, I wrote it in a way where I'm like, okay, well, what can still be hot that's not going to be horrifying for me, because it also my discomfort radiates onto them, and they're already not that comfortable. So, so I just learned a lot from doing. Stunts was actually, we had a meeting where we talked through them all, but because the idea was she's not an action hero, she's not good at stuff, she's just using what's around, a rock or momentum or a staple gun. I sort of wrote these really practical, low budget things in, and they were pretty simple to do, I think. Yeah.
I just want to say, on that note of writing in those intimacy scenes, description is always good, but part of having an intimacy coordinator means you'll have a meeting with the director, and so that's our chance to really get inside the director's head and really try and see their vision. There was the script that I was consulting on said, the character walks in on these 2 people having sex. And so I'm like, okay, how much nudity is there? What are the garments we need? Blah, blah. And then the director is like, no, I think it's actually right before they start having sex, so no clothes have been removed. And it's like, well, that's very different.
Yeah.
That's a very, very different scene. So on the flip side of, celebrating meaning sex, there can be a lot on the page that doesn't necessarily
say sex and not mean sex at all.
And not mean sex at all. And
so
even if it says sex,
writers.
that can mean so many different things.
Right. Exactly.
And so, I think the meeting between the director and the intimacy coordinator is really important for that.
Okay, switching gears here, let's talk about egos and vibes. Everybody on the panel that really does many things, like performing, writing, directing, producing, different coordination of things. So I'll start with Tara, I guess.
Good vibes Thorny, as
good
I'm
vibe
known.
Thorny. What I'm thinking, I've thought about this so many times, as if even when you want to be really collaborative and inclusive, a film set is just set up in a way that's hierarchical. I can't say that word. It's a hierarchy. Yep. Hierarchical? It's not it. You can say it. So it is a hierarchy, and it's just you kind of can't. I don't know. Maybe you can answer this. I haven't seen an example of where you can pull off a film set that just doesn't have hierarchy. It kind of feels like it kind of has to. There's department heads and the people working under those heads, and there's a producer and a director, and they're making decisions. So I guess my question to you is, how do you approach a film set when it's set up that way, if that might not be your natural way of working?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because it's not Toronto in 2002. This is not Broken Social Scene. Collectives don't work at this budget level. They might at a low budget level where everyone's not getting paid and having fun and whatever. But that's something I struggle with, because I'm very bossy, but I struggle to be a leader because I just assume everyone thinks I'm an idiot. So I just I'm lying all day long. I'm yes, I know what's going on. But I'm also a huge fan, and this comes from being in a band, and I think you can relate to that, relate to this, is best idea wins. So it's if everyone on the set, and I believe we did this, and maybe there's people want to refute it, but I believe that we listened to everybody's ideas, and we didn't dismiss anything outright, and we let everyone be heard, because it's amazing to me that I would walk onto set in the morning and it would just be going. I didn't press a button to make it operate. It's just going, and everyone's doing, and I don't need to tell anyone to do anything. They're just doing it. That's incredible. And I think it's super undervalued sometimes when you're up against time and money, which we always are. So I think but at the end of the day, someone has to be the boss. Someone has to make the decisions. And when you have like a bossy moment or like a slam the hand down kind of moment, which you try not to do, but it does happen. You get frustrated, or it's got to happen. That kind of sucks. It's like, oh, we're all family until I say. Yeah. But it's just the nature of what we're doing. Like it's just the nature of what we're doing.
Lise, Kumi, do you
I
have
felt like
something?
you wanted to jump in.
Yeah, jump in.
Go.
Well, I just have spent a lot of time thinking about this because I was doing racial equity facilitator training, and so we talked a lot about how oppressive that hierarchy can be. And I have not figured it out. I have no easy answer. But something I do think is important is moving away from even the thought of it being a hierarchy and instead saying that everyone has their role. And so it's not about I'm at the top and like that means I'm like the better or the best. Like there's no value associated to that. Side note, highly recommend everyone be a PA at some point because that will really tell you that like being the director does not mean you are working harder than the PA by any means. And so focusing on, it's just about having your role and knowing your role. And so then there's no power struggle in that. And then the second thing is prep. To me, like that's how we can avoid as much as possible about any kind of struggle on the day, because if we've done our prep, then on the day we all know what we're doing and what our role is, and we can sort of move forward. Of course, things will come up, but you kind of have to pick your place, because I've definitely been on sets where maybe the sound person is being like, well, what if you shot it like this? And there are some sets where that can be awesome and like super collaborative, and it's like, yeah, best idea. And then there are some sets where it's like, thank you so much, but like I can't even begin to think about that in a real way. And so if you've done your prep and you know what's going on, there's less of that sort of moment of like, oh gosh, what are we gonna do? And yeah, just I think knowing your role sort of takes it out of that power struggle.
Yeah, no, and that's good advice. It's like a good way of thinking about it. I was recently asked by somebody who I know who doesn't work in film at all, and he was asking about how collaborative it is, and I was explaining like each department has a head, and then you'd have a meeting as the director with the head of wardrobe, and then the head of wardrobe would then go to their people under them, and then he was like, why can't you just all be in the meeting together? And I was like, I felt bad because I didn't know what to say. I was like, I guess you could, but like that would be a big meeting and a lot of people would have their opinions and it doesn't sound like it would go well. But I felt bad because I was like, I can't think of another way to make film other than do it in this straight up, you have this role and you're the boss and then this person's under you and that person.
It's too big.
But instead of thinking of it as being underneath that, it's like, as the director, I am, the vision, and I've collaborated with my heads of department in prep, and they have taken all of their notes from the people that they're working with, and they're bringing it to them. So it's like, it's not about being on top.
Yeah, maybe I should have just worded it differently. Like, no, they're below me and I'm above them. How hard is this to understand?
But that being said, like, there is nothing better than like staring at a shot that you're just like not quite loving and having the like art assistant be like, what about this candle? And then it's like, ta-da, that's amazing. And so creating a space where that is okay and appropriate and people feel empowered to do that is really important, while also not letting it kind of become a free-for-all.
Yeah, no, that's true. That sounds like a good skill as a director to be able to accept some ideas, but not every single idea. Lise, what about you with your just different experiences as different roles, performer and different things? Have you come upon situations where, even if you're not even the one doing it, but you're witnessing maybe, these clashes of like ego and power dynamic?
You worked in like huge things.
Yeah, so coming from Toronto, so my background, born and raised in Toronto, so I came from the Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver market, and where you're working on like films like Marvel movies, and so you're dealing with large scale, and you don't dare cross over and you don't dare step out of that line. And then quite often I'd come into the East Coast and I'd work and then I'd go back home. And it was really empowering coming here to the East Coast because it's, I don't want to say a collective, I don't want to use the wrong word, but it was more of a team working here, and you would see people open to other people's ideas. being on a larger set, and you wouldn't dare, as a craft service person or a wardrobe person, say, do you know what, if you just did XYZ, it would work so much better. You wouldn't dare do that because you would never go back onto that set again. But coming here, there's just, it was eye-opening to see how when people do work collectively and let their egos down, and I think that's a key, is to know that, have the confidence in yourself that you know what it is that you're doing, but also be open to somebody else and somebody else's suggestion, because it makes things just flow that much more. If we're working in our box of, I know it all, it's not going to be as smooth flowing.
Still on topic of ego, Kumbi, I'll start with you. This question's for everybody, though. When you put your heart and soul and so much of your hard work into something, a film, and the film comes out and it does really well, how do you keep your ego in check?
I wouldn't know.
Me either. Next.
No, you all know.
It is, okay. I will say, actually, Bystanders was the first time where I was like, oh, I can actually see how this could get rough, because the first week, our beautiful ADs were, do you need a coffee? Can I get you a tea? What do you need? And I was like, I've got 2 legs. I will get my own tea. What are you talking about? That's completely unnecessary. And then I realized that every time I left set, everything stopped and no one was there to keep the thing moving. So it was actually more of a hindrance for me to get my own tea or snack or something. So then I started letting people get me food, which felt so gross. But then the second week, it didn't feel so gross. And then the third week, I would come home and be like, so where's the dinner? What's going on here? And so by the time I finished, I was like, oh, I get it. Those egos.
Does it take long?
I get it. It really it happened really quick. So I feel very grateful to have people in my life who will never let me forget that I'm just me, in a good way. I mean that in a good way. But it is something I think, especially in sort of those leadership roles, do kind of have to keep in mind, because I do think that it can balloon out of control fairly quickly, at least for me.
Before I go down the line, I want to follow up, because I have an almost identical question still on you. When you put your heart and soul into something and you do work really hard, and then you put something out like a film and it doesn't do well, how do you keep your ego in check?
That's a great question. Bystanders was really interesting in that it didn't go to a ton of festivals, and I was gutted, really, really gutted by that.
I feel like it's important to talk about this, because so many people from the outside, sorry to interrupt you, will see oh, you won an award, or you got nominated for a thing, and they assume that we're all, as directors or as creative people, we're on top of the world, and then you see them and no, I didn't get into the festival I wanted, or
It is hard, because even just this morning, someone was like, oh my, so much success, holy smoke, and I was like, huh, that's not necessarily how it felt from the inside, but it was a good reminder, and I think it was actually nice to have that interaction, because, and what I held with Bystanders was that we didn't get into a ton of festivals, which meant we weren't able to go up for a lot of awards. But we had this theatrical run, which was bigger than I had ever imagined. And then they sent me across the country, and I met with people who saw the movie, and the feedback was amazing. And so it was okay, on paper, I feel like it didn't succeed or do particularly well. But my experience was actually exactly what I wanted. And so it goes back, I think people say this all the time, but having your own metrics of success is so, so important, because if I only cared about what it looked like on my resume or what it looked like when someone was reading a bio, I might not be able to move on and feel good about that. But Bystanders as a film is what I wanted it to be, and it connected with people in a way that I wanted it to. And so that's kind of what I have to keep reminding myself when I start being but it didn't go to wherever or whatever.
But it did play the best film festival, which is the AIFF.
Oh, thank you.
There you go.
See, thank you.
But it is, I think, an important conversation to have, because, as creatives, and Tara, you released a movie last year, but you've also, released books and podcasts and different forms of putting yourself out there and your creative work out there. And then if something does well or doesn't do well, But like, people forget because, or maybe some people don't know that your ego isn't just like I'm amazing. Your ego is also I suck. That's also your ego, right? So
Almost exclusively.
so how do you go
If
through
I
that?
continue, wait, if I ever get to a point where I am making 1 year's living wage from any of this shit, I might become an asshole. In like a different way. Otherwise,
Oh,
it is
just 1 year,
not
and that's it. You're
one.
gonna-
Yeah, it is
really easy.
Otherwise, it is not difficult to keep my ego in check. And I had a 6-month depression where I just was getting rejected. It was also in winter. All you do is see the rejections come
See, I'm in
in.
that place right now, so it's nice to hear. It's
Yeah.
nice to get a reminder.
Well,
that it does
post show
happen.
blues, which you know about, but it's like in like a massive life ruining way, as opposed to like a few days or whatever you normally have. Yeah, so I mean, again, yeah, well is in the eye of the beholder, but and I mean, you and I we're all in the same filmmaking community, and there's some folks out there we know too, and we're all gossiping all the time about what people are doing,
I
and what
never
people
gossip.
are,
I don't know what she's
what
talking
people
about.
are getting, and who got this budget, and what's their world premiere. I had a friend tell me like premiere status is the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard of. I'm like, I agree, but it's all I think about. Like I was like, wow, there's new ways to feel bad about what you're doing.
Right. You don't even know.
Very humbling, all of it.
Well, it's hard. I mean, Lise, can you speak to this within the community? It's like, I don't know if you agree, but I feel like we want each other to succeed, and you can't help but feel a little hurt when you don't get the thing because it's such a small pool. It's like my friend got the thing, and I'm happy for them.
And
but I
you
didn't get
feel
the
hurt
thing.
when you do get the thing.
And I get the thing, and I feel guilty because my friend didn't get it that time.
This is why I'm always nervous about saying yes to panels because I try to decide if this is an appropriate story.
Yeah, just do it.
So
We're filming it, but Martha can cut it out if you
okay.
don't want to.
No, it's really not that bad. I just am like, oh god, I don't leave my house enough. My partner is also in the industry, is an actor and director and writer, and everywhere I go, people, oh my gosh, Taylor is so successful. Wow, like he's doing so much. He's in everything. Oh my goodness. First of all, I don't know if he's booked a role that he hasn't written for himself or a friend has cast him in like 2 years. And there's this like weird perception that he is in everything and doing everything and is all everywhere because he makes his own stuff, and it's just not accurate.
Right.
So that's one thing like that I find with the community. But also, we heard from a jury that he was up for
I
being
love jury
nominated.
feedback.
I know. This is so bad. Secrets. Stays
Don't
in
say
the
what
room.
jury it was. We don't know.
But essentially, he was in discussion for being nominated for an award, and apparently one of the pieces of feedback was he doesn't need this. And then he got taken out of being in consideration. Which, like, that still kind of keeps me up at night, because what does that even mean? Like, it's for an award? Like, it's not supposed to be based on need unless it is that kind of an award? Like, and also, it was in a realm that he actually has never won that award. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Anyways, so all that to say, yes, we're in this community where there's a lot of talk and there's this idea of perception and what's real and what's not real, and it's just not necessarily ever true.
It's almost like the fake. It's not fake. It's just the version that people are making assumptions. And we are in a small community, so we do all know each other for the most part. And
Plus,
it's not-
people lie. Like, people are bullshitters.
like in what?
Like,
way?
just like on Instagram. You know what I mean?
Oh, like people like show
yeah.
off
No,
that they're
you're
doing
like, oh,
better.
they're doing
Yeah,
great.
yeah, yeah.
No, they're not.
Right.
They're not. They're as big as losers as we are.
Yeah, everyone is a loser. It's true. Not Lise though. Lise isn't a loser.
Lisa's doing amazing.
She's doing great. But
I'm on the next plane to Toronto.
no. But how do you feel, Lise, about your experience with like competition and trying to feel happy that your friend got the thing that you wanted to get, but
Well,
feel,
it's also it's very different, because a lot of times you wouldn't lose out on a stunt job to start. Like, if I'm doubling somebody who's 5'10" and there's only one person who's 5'10", I'm getting the job, right? It's a very different type of. Now, once you get into coordinating, it's different, but then a lot of it comes down to what your expertise is. So I watch what the filmmakers do, and I'm always so in awe of all of you, because it's just amazing to me. And I'll watch the project, like I'll work on your film and I'll work on your film. And I'll come home at the end of the day going, okay, that was just so amazing. I always judge things, and like one of our sayings is, you're as good as the last day you worked. So if you came home at the end of the day and you did everything the way that you had hoped that it was going to go, and yes, we're at the mercy of other departments and other things, like, did the lighting fail or did it turn into a storm when it wasn't supposed to? Anything that's in our control, if you came home at the end of the day having done the best job possible, then that's a win as far as I'm concerned. And then when I watch your projects, I lose my mind because to me it's just so inspiring that people are writing these things from the heart, and you put these projects together, and then oh my God, to have the guts to do that and to pitch and to go and get money, like it's like putting your child, trying to get them into the best schools all the time, and you guys do it, and then you get them on the screen and you get to watch them, and to me that's a huge win. And it might not have gotten the premier status, and it might not have hit all the festivals that you want to, but when I was watching you go across Canada, I was losing my mind because it's so exciting. It's like watching your kid go off. And they might only make it to grade 12, or they might make it to university. They might become a doctor. They might win a Nobel Prize. But you still did this spectacular thing. And I think when we lose sight of that, like, what are you here for? You're here to tell your story. And did you get your story out? And did you tell it with honor and integrity? To me, that's huge. Huge.
That's great. What a good perspective that we all need to
Yeah.
keep
Can
that
we
in
all
mind. That
text
is so
Lise
true.
when we're sad?
Please talk. I wonder if there's anyone in the audience that wants to ask a question. Oh, right there. First hand up.
Learning to separate your ego from your art. One of the hardest things I've ever had to learn, and it's a lesson I keep relearning because I keep forgetting them. That being said, I think you would know this one. I did see bystanders in that long. It's so good. My question is about intimacy coordination. Let's say I'm directing a film, have a scene with, let's just call it obvious sexual content happening. Can you just run me through how you had an intimacy coordinator on set? How would you go about, just step by step, how would you shoot that scene? I just never knew.
Should we start with Lee, or do you know does it matter who you're asking? Maybe both collaborate on it. I'm going to repeat the question just so that we got everyone knows. So step by step from the stage of script, right? Script goes to them, and then what happens for an intimate scene?
Do we go first? No? Okay. Well, I mean, there's a breakdown. Whether you're doing it for intimacy or for stunts, you read it and you read, like, we're celebrating. I was the intimacy coordinator on her film, and I was one of the naive ones going, oh, celebrating, this is great. Like, do they have noisemakers? Are we having party hats? Do we have confetti going? And then she's like, no. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, close on, close up. So you the way I work it, and most intimacy coordinators work it, you have a conversation with the director. How do you want to tell your story? What is your vision? And what is your budget? And who are you working with? And are we working with minors? We have to remember too that we're working in a different climate nowadays where for some people, just showing their collarbone is intimate. And they can't, for personal reasons, for religious reasons, reveal anything else. So, okay, but you want to show the story in a different way? How can we block this? How can we work with lighting, with wardrobe, so it looks like there's something happening, but nothing's really happening? So there's a lot of layers that have to be kind of peeled away, literally, to see how it is that you want to tell your story, because then you might have two performers. You might have one performer going, hey, I'm comfortable for full frontal nudity, for back nudity, for everything, and then another performer that you've casted saying, yeah, I want all my clothes on, or you can just take the bra, like, the strap off my shoulder and that's all. The director can become very stuck on that, saying, well, I had envisioned it this way. And that's when we get creative and tell a story. You can tell so many intimate moments just with lighting and hand gestures and lingering shots that are suggestive without telling the full story completely bare ass, pardon my language.
Yeah, so similarly, so the first thing is I'll do a breakdown and I'll flag anything. I probably wouldn't have flagged celebrate it, but I'll flag like,
I
you
learned.
know, peck on the cheek, or, you know, even if it's like, if it's a kid and a mom and they hug, I'll flag that. I'll flag, you know, is in a bathing suit. I'll just, anything that like piques my interest, I'll write down in my little form. Then I'll have a meeting with the director and I'll say, so when it's a peck on the cheek, like, are the actors already cast? Is that a, you know, familial peck on the cheek? Is that like, you know, I'll just try and get the vision of what they are imagining specifically, what they want. And on that note, I actually think if you've got a script that you know has that kind of content, I actually recommend bringing on an intimacy coordinator before you cast, like in pre-production, because then they can help you with a breakdown, because that should be alluded to in the breakdown. If there is sexual content expected, if there's nudity expected, that should just be straight up like in the audition sides kind of thing. Oftentimes I'm getting hired like, sometimes it's like 2 days before production, and I say I can't take this job unless I can meet with the director and I can meet with all the actors before the scene, before the day. That's sort of like the bare minimum, and I need access to the whole script. But in a perfect world, I do the breakdown, I send it. Oftentimes also the director will do their own breakdown where they've already flagged what they see as intimacy scenes. Sometimes there's something I've missed, sometimes there's something that they missed or didn't even think was an intimate scene, and we just talk about it. And a lot of times I'm crossing things out because it's actually the way that they're imagining shooting it. We're not going to see anything, or it's, you know, from the back or whatever it is. And so I'm like, that's great. I might still bring it up to the actor just to check, but maybe it's not considered like a full-on intimacy scene. From there, we'll go to the actors. The conversation with the actors needs to be confidential, so it needs to be sort of one-on-one. There isn't anyone else from production there. We go through the scenes. I'll ask, you know, if they have any boundaries, hard boundaries. There's a lot of like technical, we use like gates and fences and things that are okay sometimes depending on the, like we have a whole conversation with the actor. I'll ask about like allergies, because even a kiss, if someone has a severe peanut allergy, that's something that needs to be noted so that the other person can either brush their teeth or not have that food. So it's like a fairly extensive conversation that we'll have with the actor. Of course, again, depending on what the scene is. So from there, if the actor, as Lise was saying, is like, all that's great, I knew about it in the audition, I've read the script, I've already talked to the director, all good, then that's awesome. We move on, we start building the riders, which is something production builds, and I'll pass on to the actor so they can sign off based on our conversation. If, however, the actor is like, whoa, when it said they go to the bathroom, I just assumed like, you know, the door would be closed or my pants would be up to here, and now you're telling me that they're like fully unclothed going to the bathroom, like, I'm not cool with that. Then we have a conversation, okay, what would you be cool, like, and then that's where we start to get creative, what would actually work. Then I go back to the director and I say, so what about this, or what about that, or what if we, you know, shot it like this. Last note, sorry, I know I'm talking a lot. So consent is almost a new concept for us as an industry, in all honesty. It has to be reversible for it to be real consent, which is something that is really difficult for production, because it means that you could have all these conversations and on the day an actor could actually still say no, which can be really scary for a director and everybody. The thing about consent that is different in the industry than in real life is that it actually does have consequences, whereas true consent in real life should have no repercussions. In the industry, there is a repercussion where you actually could get fired. Like, and that has to be okay, because if you signed up for a job that says simulated sex and now you're saying you're not going to do it, then they have to find someone who will. And so I think actors need to understand that. That's why we need to talk about it like in the audition phase so that there isn't those kinds of surprises, because it can happen, and I think it has to be okay. And I think the difference is that it needs to be production's fault instead of the actor's fault if that's what comes up, because it means we haven't done our job of talking everything through and doing our full prep. And and that's the difference. So that it's not like, oh gosh, that actor's never going to get hired again. It's like that producer's never going to not have an intimacy coordinator again, or something like that. So just switching the onus. But in terms of that process, director meeting, actor meeting, possibly another director meeting, then you're having production meetings, you're meeting with wardrobe, sometimes with stunts, depending on what the action is. Modesty garments will be purchased either by wardrobe or by the intimacy coordinator. Sometimes you'll have fittings beforehand if it's something really specific. Ideally, in a dream world, it doesn't happen very often, but sometimes you'll get private rehearsals if it's something really elaborate, thank you, that you want to figure out. Because I think you would probably agree. My motto is like, no surprises. We don't want to show up on the day with the camera, with the crew, and then have there be any kind of surprise. We want to know what they're wearing, what they're doing, what they're comfortable with. Everyone wants to be on the same page before we get to set, is the dream. That was a lot.
No, it was really interesting. I never knew all of those steps, but that makes a lot of sense. Oh, another question right here.
Yeah, so I know, especially with like low or no budget, or even maybe higher budget stuff, eventually there gets to a lot of the time there gets to a point where you're like running out of time, and time is very valuable. So especially in terms of like intimacy and all these things that we agree upon, and time is no longer in your favor, and things need to change on the fly. What are kind of the boundaries or the guardrails that are put in place to make sure that we feel safe, and even like the rest of the crew in terms of like non-intimacy scenes, when time is falling apart, and you kind of keep those egos in check and make sure that everyone's
Yeah. Yeah, good
Well,
question.
to me, intimacy wouldn't be a thing that gets fucked with. Like, that process, that's not what we would cut for time. But if you're running out of time, I don't know. It's just, I think it's a super case by case. It's just sort of like, what do we have left? What have we gotten? What can we get rid of?
Yeah, so if it's a like simulated sex scene and you have a rider, that's a document that says exactly what can and cannot be seen. So you might be, okay, we're going to change this scene or we're going to cut this shot, but you're never going to add a full-on, full frontal scene. Like, the rider will tell you sort of what your guidelines are. Sometimes things do change. I think it was on Queen, what did they change? The Sharmila, when I subbed in for you. Queen of My Dreams. The scene where the two kids are, they're dropping their pants to go to the bathroom, and the plan was there was like this field of bushes or something, and I don't know if it had rained or something happened, and the leaves had all gone from the bushes, so it was no longer going to like cover or be a barrier the way that it had been talked about, and so time is moving and you need to be able to shoot something quick, but we weren't going to shoot anything unless there was a good spot to have it be exactly what we talked about. So it wasn't the plan, but we knew what the new plan had to be, and so I think they ended up actually raking up a bunch of leaves and debris and sort of putting it almost like back on the bushes so that they were still covered. So based on the plan, you know what you can't do and you know what you can do. And in terms of egos and people on the crew, part of our intimacy training is talking about sort of different kinds of oppression and different kinds of supremacy and all of these things. And one of them is urgency. And that sense of urgency is a form of oppression. And you can't be intentional when things get really urgent, which is part of why prep is so, so important. But it's also part of our job when the director is starting to get really flustered. It's part of our job to not put that on the actor. It's part of our job as intimacy coordinators as well. If we've got this much time, we're going to do it in that much time, but we can't deregulate ourselves because that doesn't help anybody. So that's part of our training, is to sort of be the calm in those situations.
Yeah, and the one thing that's really important too is it's safety first. So whether it's like with your grips and your gaffers and your camera and everything, like if you were sitting there screaming, going, "We've only got 5 minutes to set up this shot," and you've got people running around, it's the same thing for stunts. It's the same thing for intimacy. It's always safety first. So it's like just slow the roll a little bit, and then just so we can focus. And I find that, because so many times at the end of the day, especially with stunts, it's like, a lot of times they save stunts for the end of the day. Okay, we've got an hour to get this. Okay, well, we set aside 4 hours for this, and they now want to get it in 45 minutes to an hour. Well, now you're putting people's lives at risk. So whether it be stunts or intimacy, you are still putting somebody is so vulnerable. Cast is vulnerable. Crew is also vulnerable because it can be very uncomfortable for the crew. So that's when we have to take agency and we have to just kind of go, okay, we're all on the same page. We all want the same outcome, but let's just slow it down a little bit and see, just to ensure that everybody stays safe no matter what the role is.
I also would just say, to your point about low budgets often sort of running out of time, I think one of the nice things about those smaller budgets, or no budgets especially, is that oftentimes you don't have the same deadlines with those as you do when you have funding from somewhere else, which kind of means you have more time. Not necessarily on the shoot, but you have kind of all the time in the world in terms of prep, which I just always harp on because I feel like prep is where you get to save yourself from all of those moments. Because if you have a plan, and then you have a plan B, and then you have a plan C, then in those moments where it's like, oh, that shot took longer, but it's okay because this next shot I'm gonna move to plan B, and I've already thought about that, and I'm already happy with that, then you're less likely to be in that situation where you're sort of panicking.
I totally agree, and it really annoys me when somebody like talks about, but my vision, I need every shot, and it's like, no, you go home and you rewrite, you cut the scene if you have to, like you said, like you're putting people's lives at risk, or just, I would never want to make someone feel uncomfortable in order to get the shot, like.
I literally had to rewrite a scene yesterday because there was too much driving in it.
Oh yeah.
So I had to figure out a reason for them to pull over.
Yeah. What was it?
Someone had an open container in the back.
Oh, cool.
Right?
Good.
Works.
Yeah, that works. Another question. We have a
Spoiler.
couple more minutes.
Hi, Stevie.
So you talked about when your ego's down here, but I love what you said, Lisa, about how you're as good as like the last day you work on set. So I was wondering, what are some proud moments, like moments you've had at set where, like, I'm doing it, I've done the thing, I'm bringing the good vibes, and like you go home, you're like, yeah, proud of yourself.
Yeah. Good vibes. Have any of you three ever brought good vibes to set before, and what was that like?
Is that for us to determine?
I found working on both, because I was very, very honored to work on both of their productions, and it was always you went out of your way to make it a really comfortable working environment. Like you go onto a set and people are screaming, it's horrific. And it puts everybody off, whether you're the director or the executive producer, anything. So you too have managed to really instill these positive work environments, which are just an absolute joy to work on. For me, any day that people are going home safe and the director got the shot that they wanted and the performers are happy with the production or the performance they gave, to me that's a great day. That's a huge, huge win. And watching these guys work all the time is a huge win.
That's nice.
Please.
So there were 3 scenes where Wally and Lou celebrated. And I was like, 3's too many. And I turned one into a slow dance. And it was the last thing we only had one 5-day week for some reason. Yeah, and so this was the last thing we did at like 10 p.m. on a Friday after, and it's my first intimate, all of our first intimate scenes. And it was just like, they're gonna dance, they're just gonna have this moment, there's no dialogue, nothing's scripted, and we had this Jen Grant record, like literally a vinyl record, that we ended up using the same song, and I remember the camera team had just turned Wally's bedroom into this beautiful, like red and orange and yellow. It was so romantic, and our sound person, Olivia, walked in and burst into tears because it was so pretty. It was so great. And then we just had this really quiet, lovely, they danced to the whole song twice through. And it was just this really lovely, beautiful way to end the week. And it's, some might say too long in the movie. I wanted to do the whole thing. I knew that was insane. But even like editing, I made the editor send me the clips so I could just watch the full clips. Like, so that was a good day for me.
Sometimes you have to rewrite or something like that happens and then it ends up making it better.
Yeah, so I put one in the new one where I'm like, this is going to be like the slow dance, and it's probably not because I'm putting too much on it.
But just put a slow dance in all of your movies.
I'm trying.
Oh,
yeah. You were just in one, remember?
Oh, yes, I
Yeah,
was, yeah. Well, I was a live reading. But yes, that's right.
Right?
Kumbi, what about you? A win that you're really proud of?
Yeah, actually, there's a couple. So when we wrapped Bystanders, I think I'll be chasing that high for the rest of my life. It was just one of those like cinematic wraps where we decided to have this really fun, because we kind of shot the movie in chronological order a little bit, and if anyone's seen it, you know, like things don't go well, which meant that the last week ended up being the heaviest, which was intense for everybody. But there was this little like 15-second dance break, and we decided to put that at the very end. And so we had that, and then we decided to keep the cameras rolling and bring down the rest of the cast and have them like join in the dance break. And so we have that all on camera. And sometimes when I'm feeling sad, I'll just watch that little bit of like, yeah, just them saying like, that's a wrap. Everyone starts crying, everyone's dancing, there's music playing, everyone starts hugging, like that was kind of it. And the rest of the day, as people were wrapping out, I had like a grip come up to me and say like, I've never been on a movie like this, which that's gonna be a highlight for sure. And an AD was like, you know, people talk about wanting to create these kinds of spaces, and it's just really difficult. And yeah, felt very happy that day. That being said, like, that doesn't mean everyone had an awesome time, and I think it was really difficult to like separate, again, maybe that's my ego, from that, because I was like, but I tried so hard. And you have to realize like you actually can't control that to that level. But there are little things that I recommend everyone do if it's possible. It obviously isn't always, and it's definitely easier on smaller sets, but like, we start our days with a little morning gathering, and whether it's we're doing the land acknowledgement, but just saying like, here's sort of the plan for the day. We're so happy you're here, or whatever it is. Or yesterday was really crazy. Let's not do that again. Let's focus on this stuff, or whatever it is. And like, that's something that I hope I can do forever, because
Bring the humanity back instead of just like
Yeah.
a machine that goes.
just remembering that like we're all doing this because hopefully we want to.
Also, I'm a huge fan of a round of applause. I love rapping people because you get to clap, but also just for like random shit. So I can't remember. We were in at the Dingle, and something happened. I can't remember what. We were trying to get the sun or beat the sun. I don't remember which. And we did it, and everyone clapped, and it was awesome.
Yay.
Yeah.
Sometimes good things happen on set. That's the
Once in
lesson
a
we
while.
take from today. I think that's a great note to end on.
I have to say one more thing,
Yep,
because
go
I
ahead.
thought that I would say it at some point. I just, in the little like description of the panel, it talked about how to create safe sets, and it's just a little like, I don't remember the term, but I go on this rant all the time, and since I have a microphone,
Yeah, I actually
just-
had that written down as a question, but I didn't get to it.
because it's not possible. It's not possible to create a safe set or a safe space, because everyone has their own background and trauma and history, and you don't know what could potentially be triggering or bring something up for someone. So I just feel like I'm trying to remove that language from my vocabulary. It's quite difficult because it's easy to say, we want this to be a safe, experience or whatever it is. But what I'm striving for now is either a brave or embodied space where you're creating an environment where people feel like they can advocate for themselves and they can speak up. So it doesn't mean that you're promising like, you're gonna feel good all the time, because that's not
that's
a
a big
promise you can make. But just trying to create an environment where people feel like they know who to talk to if things aren't feeling awesome. They know that they can, and they won't be chastised or anything like that. I just had to say that. That's it.
No, sorry, I wasn't trying to stop you. No, I think that's a really, really important thing to say, because there are probably some filmmakers here, or even emerging filmmakers, who might want to be like, okay, but my set's going to be the most fun, and 100% I'm going to be best friends with everybody at Rap, and it's not always how it goes, but that's a good goal to strive for, something where people do feel like they can speak up if they have to, and they will be heard, and maybe not everyone's going to be in a good mood 100% of the time, but that's okay.
Well, and as you said to me, Stephanie, of course they're shit talking you. You're the boss.
Yeah, I gave that advice to somebody who was directing, and she's like,
There's
they rolled their eyes at me behind my back or whatever, and I was like, yeah, of course they did. You're the boss. They're going to hate you.
There's
You gotta
a
be
group
okay with
chat,
that.
and they're shitting on you in it. Just get on with your
Just
life.
be okay with that. Okay, thank you very much for everybody for coming out.